is here today to boldly go how Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek helped advance civil rights. It is here. This one coming to us from Angela Dalton and Lauren Semmer, and of course we'll be doing a giveaway too. So keep your ears and eyes open for that one coming up shortly. A giveaway of one of these beauties coming your way. Thank you so much for joining in to Boldly Go. Yes, so if you do not have a copy yet, or if you've been borrowing one from the library, well, there's one coming your way. We're giving away one here at Storytime. Thank you so much for joining in. In fact, it is this very copy that we're giving away. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime today. I am excited to be here with you, and of course look forward to a wonderful story and a wonderful conversation with our guests today, Angela Dalton and Lauren Semmer. I hope you're ready for this one too. Thank you. A big congratulations to them indeed on their release publishing of their new book, To Boldly Go, which is out right now. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you indeed for welcoming this book into this world. It is a beautiful one. And I think once we read it today, you will know just why I've been so excited about it. Thank you so much for joining in today. Let us see who is with us before we go into our conversation with Angela Dalton and Lauren Semmer. Thank you so much for joining in today. Glad we are here together. Good morning to you. How are you doing? Tara, McNamara, Erin and Clara out in snowy Massachusetts. Thank you so much for being here with us. Please do stay cozy, do stay warm. Thank you so much for joining in today. And did see a picture too from Massachusetts today, and it looks beautiful. I know it is cold, but it looks beautiful nonetheless. Good morning to you one more time. Erin and Clara sending you hugs. And of course, good morning to you, Tara McNamara. Thank you so much for joining us on Storytime today out there in snowy Massachusetts. Almost saying Vermont. No, snowy Massachusetts. Graham and Nikki in Massober, East Scotland. Oh my goodness. Welcome to Storytime. And I love the picture too, Graham Robinson. Thank you so much for joining us on Storytime. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. Massober, East Scotland. Well, thank you so much for joining in. Good morning to you. How are you doing? Thank you for joining us, and I'm glad that you could join us live for Storytime today from all the way out in Scotland, and I hope to see you on many more Storytimes. Thank you for joining in today. Graham and Nikki, good morning to you. Sending you love out there. Thank you so much for joining in today. And I must say too, I'm assuming it is cold right there right now too. So I hope that you're staying warm. And indeed, I hope to see you on many more Storytimes. Thank you for joining in. Graham, Nikki, thank you for being here on Storytime. Happy Friday to you. And I hope indeed you do join in on all the dances and everything that we do here on Storytime. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us. Amanda West, how are you doing? And of course, Nathan and Sarah out in Gray, Illinois today. We're very excited for this book too. Well, I am excited. Thank you so much for sharing your enthusiasm too. Yes. Lots of us excited for this wonderful book and cannot wait to read it. And our guests are here too. It is pre-recorded, but they're here and they'll be talking their book. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will get them to Angela and of course Lauren Semmer. And who knows, they might be watching. So please do leave us your questions if you have any, or indeed any clarifications or anything else that you'd want to add. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. A wonderful book awaits. And Graham, thank you for the feedback. Good to know. Always feels good when you get the pronunciation right. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Thank you. And Nikki, welcome too. All right, so we'll be getting started with our conversation very shortly, but join me on the other side of this short break. Our book today is called To Boldly Go. It is the full title is To Boldly Go: How Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek Helped Advance Civil Rights. Learn about this amazing personality. And it is written by Angela Dalton and Lauren Semmer. And of course, we're reading this one with permission of Harper Kids. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime today. Here we go. Without much ado, after the break, we get into our story. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll catch you on the other side of this one.
Hello, Storytime friends. My name is Angela Dalton, and I'm an author of picture books. Some you may have even seen read right here on Storytime with Mr. LaMotta. I'm excited to tell you about my brand new picture book called To Boldly Go, How Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek Help Advance Civil Rights. It comes out January 17th, and it's an amazing story about the legendary Nichelle Nichols and her role on Star Trek, which she left until a very special person reminded her about the impact that she was making, not just on television, but around the world. And I'm excited to tell you that myself and Lauren Semmer, the illustrator, will be coming here on January 20th to read the book to you and to answer any questions that you might have and to tell you a little bit about the book and how we came up with the idea for it. I hope that you'll join us again on January 20th right here in Storytime with Mr. Lamada. Until then, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me, please visit me at angeladalton.com. Okay, now we got to get back to the story today on Storytime with Mr. Lamada. I hope you're enjoying it. I know I am. Okay, see you soon. Bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Storytime one more time. And of course, it is finally here, the book that we've been waiting for. And this one is coming from Angela Dalton and Lauren Semmer. Yes, Black Girl Magic in the house today. I hope you're ready. And please, I hope that you get to see this book soon. I hope you get to have it in your hands soon. It is an amazing one. I have just been, my mind is blown from reading this one, and I hope that you all get to see it soon and enjoy it. And of course, we do have the amazing creators of this wonderful book coming in to join us today. And please join me in welcoming to Storytime, Lauren Semmer and Angela Dalton. Welcome.
Hi.
You two have created this masterpiece. You know, we've been celebrating it on Storytime for the past few weeks, just talking about it coming out, and now it is here. So please tell me, what inspired it?
Well, I was actually standing in line at Target, and I looked over, and Time Magazine had just released this beautiful limited edition of like the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And it took me way back to my childhood because I was like, oh my gosh, I remember, Nichelle Nichols, she was on the cover just looking like beautiful, like her beautiful self. And I was like, oh my goodness, I remember just how influential Star Trek was. So I grabbed that magazine and took it home with me and just perused it like I did like as a kid, just like looking at all the pictures and the pages and reading things over again. And then a few days later, I was watching television and this show came on where they did a reenactment of between this moment of Nichelle Nichols and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And my mind was blown because I'd never heard this story before. You know, as much as Star Trek was beloved in my family, as much as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was beloved in my family, I'd never heard the story before. Mm-hmm. And so I did some research thinking like there had to be a picture book about it somewhere. And there hadn't been. Mm-hmm. And so I just took that as a sign that it had to be written. And I started doing research. I read Miss Nichols' autobiography, and I just was so enamored with all the things that she had done. She had made so many incredible impacts that we don't talk enough about of what she did. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote the story, in her honor as a homage to her. And and that's how it was inspiring to read about her life and then wanting to share it with kids because it was so beautiful.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that too. And I know that Angela, for anybody that watches Storytime, they know you already, and you've spoken with us. You've been here so many times, and of course, everybody knows we love Angela here. And so, but I also give a chance to Lauren to introduce yourself, and who is Lauren, and how did you connect with this book?
Yes, this is an amazing project. I'm really excited to be here with you today. My name is Lauren Semmer. I'm an illustrator. I'm an illustrator of children's books, art, including the ABCs of Black History, which went on to become a New York Times bestseller, which is pretty exciting for me. It was actually right after that book, I finished illustrating that book, that this manuscript came across my desk and I read it, and it was just so incredible that I had to be involved with it.
Yeah. Oh, and had
Yeah.
you been a fan of Nichelle Nichols, or had you been a fan of Star Trek as well up to this point?
I had this I kind of have funny memories of watching the show when I was a little kid on Channel 9 where I grew up. It was on really late at night, and sometimes I'd like sneak and stay awake and watch it after the news. And so they'd play all the old episodes, and I remember seeing her on it and thinking, wow, she's so cool. And I really liked fashion as a kid and style.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, she is like the most stylish, cool Black woman that you'd see on TV. And for me, it was kind of that connection of just really admiring her glamour. And so it was kind of fun seeing it again and being able to kind of go into her story and having this like chance to sort of like tell it. It was really cool.
Yeah. Oh, and I know that you mentioned Channel 9 and the area that you grew up in.
Yeah.
Angela, I know you also grew up. Was it the same area?
Pretty much.
Was it Channel 9?
When she said Channel 9, I was like, Fox Channel 9 News?
I know.
We did. That was one of the fun connections that Lauren and I have made on this journey together with our book, of finding out that we both grew up in Minnesota, which is so weird. There's
Very weird, very random.
many Black women from Minnesota.
No, we're like one of, I don't know, 6. I'm just kidding. It felt like that sometimes.
It really did. But I was so excited when the editor at the publisher told me that Lauren had said yes to this book. I'm just admirer of ABC's Black History, and like you can tell in the color palettes and the research that she put into it, like the love that she put into these illustrations, the spreads. I'm just so in awe and so thankful that she said yes.
No, I love it too, and I definitely want to get into that as well. Bringing two different people together, and I'm assuming you did not know each other at this point until this book, and just wondering too, how that plays in, how that the chemistry that you both have. But for now, I know that we want to read the book together first, and you're reading for us. It's always exciting for me when I have other guests that are reading that day, because I get to listen in. I get to be read to. I'll sit back here with my coffee. But yeah, so we'll read and then we'll come back for the story. And Angela, I'll give you time to set up, and when you're ready, then we can definitely get started. But in that time too, Angela is getting us set up. Lauren, where can people find you?
Well, I am on Instagram. That's my main place that you can find my work, and that is at by Lauren Semmer. And you can also check out my work on my website, which is at www.laurensemmer.com.
All right. So people remember to find Lauren at laurensemmer.com, and of course on Instagram, follow and see what is new, and keep up with what's happening. Thank you for being here too. And a reminder too to everybody that is joining us today that we are celebrating today to boldly go. And this one is How Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek Helped Advance Civil Rights. And it is written by the amazing duo that is here with us today, Angela Dalton and Lauren Semmer, New York Times best-selling illustrator. I want to ask you about that as well. When that title comes up, or when that tag is added to your name, how does that feel? How did it feel? What happens? Because we see this, for some of us, we don't know what happened. Do you get a certificate? Do you get an award? What do you get? You get a ring?
No. I mean, it's funny. I have 2 small kids, and so when it happened, it was kind of this funny moment where I got an email and a couple phone calls, and everyone was really excited. And then my son was like, I need dinner. And I was like, oh, okay, back to reality. And so I was like, all right, let's go make dinner. I mean, it was like 1 minute of celebration. Which in a way, it's like, it doesn't, it's a really nice thing to have happen, because the book is out with so many more people now. But I mean, I think it's just great to be able to work on projects. That to me is the fun, is the making the art part. So
yeah, nothing like your own people to put you in your place.
Absolutely, and they're right. It's like, it's dinner time. Let's eat.
Oh, love it. All right, well, I'll let you two read, and of course, I do have today too, as you know, Storytime people, my co-presenter Angela Dalton, whether I like it or not, is here today. Catch you on the other side.
And with that, you, Mr. Lamata. Thank you again for having us. And yeah, Lauren, you ready
I'm ready.
read the book for the kids, for the people? Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. We are so excited to present to you today, To Boldly Go, How Nichelle Nichols in Star Trek Helped Advance Civil Rights. It was TV night, the best night, and I could hear the click, click, clinking of buttons as Dad searched for the right channel. As the sweet, syrupy goodness of red Kool-Aid splashed into my glass, I knew the real treat was yet to come.
Mom, Dad, and I settled into place, and as the opening began, I followed along out loud. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
The show was Star Trek, and we instantly fell under the spell of watching Captain James T. Kirk and his crew make peace and live in harmony with different life forms across the galaxy. But he wasn't the reason why we watched.
We watched to see Lieutenant Uhura perform her duties as the Starship Communications Officer. Hailing frequencies open, sir. Lieutenant Uhura was played by actress Nichelle Nichols, and we burst with pride seeing someone who looked like us standing as an equal to make the future better for everyone. This was important not just to my family, but to all Black people, because our reality told a very different story.
When Star Trek first appeared on TV, America swirled in a whirlpool of change. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other civil rights leaders joined together to inspire people to march peacefully for the equality and the rights of Black people.
After Star Trek showed the possibilities of peace among life forms during primetime hours, the nightly news showed the real-life suffering the marchers endured because of racism. Attack dogs, fire hoses, jail. People watched as this happened to both children and adults, just because of the color of their skin.
Across the country in Hollywood, Nichelle was working to bring Uhura to life. In a time when Black actresses played servants on television, Nichelle had the unique opportunity to work with Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry to create the character Uhura. Nichelle worked on Uhura's backstory, explaining how she became a communications officer leading a team of specialists to solve difficult problems. Nichelle also helped discover Uhura's name. It's derived from the word uhuru, which means freedom in Swahili. For Nichelle, Uhura represented how she saw herself, strong, independent, equal.
Even as a little girl, Nichelle was confident. Her parents had taught Nichelle and her siblings that they could become whatever they wanted, and nobody could tell them otherwise. Growing up in a home filled with music, books, and a love for art, Nichelle knew at 5 years old what she would grow up to be, a performer. But at age 7, Nichelle became very ill and spent a month in the hospital. When she finally began to recover, Nichelle's doctors told her she needed to exercise to regain her strength. Her parents enrolled her in ballet, and she fell in love with it, quickly proving to everyone she was a natural talent.
But even with her talent, she was still reminded that racist people would always try to make Black people feel like they were less than white people. Black people cannot dance the ballet. Assemblée, grand jeté, plié, port de bras, pirouette. Remembering what her parents taught her made Nichelle determined to prove that this way of thinking was wrong, and she did. Nichelle danced the ballet for many years.
As she grew older, her love for singing, dancing, and performing brought dazzling opportunities. At 16, she toured with the legendary bandleader Duke Ellington. Later, she won a small role in a movie starring many Black celebrities, who became her role models and lifelong friends. Maya Angelou, Pearl Bailey, Sammy Davis Jr., Sidney Poitier, and more. Soon, Nichelle became a rising star herself, and so when Star Trek began, she was confident that she belonged wherever her talents took her.
But Hollywood had other ideas. Working on the studio lot, Nichelle experienced the same painful reminders from her childhood that white people did not treat Black people as equals, no matter how talented they were. You don't work here. Even the Star Trek character she had worked so hard to bring to life became less visible on the show. We've been ordered not to give you your fan mail. Nichelle no longer felt strong or confident, and it seemed neither she nor her character would ever be seen as important or equal. She decided there was only one thing she could do. Head held high, she walked into Star Trek producer Gene Roddenberry's office and told him she was quitting the show. Nichelle, please think about it, he pleaded with her. But Nichelle was sure of her decision.
The next evening, Nichelle appeared at a fundraiser as a special guest. As her eager fans gathered around her, the event host approached her. Nichelle, there is someone who would like to meet you, the host explained. He's a big fan of Star Trek and Uhura. Turning around, Nichelle locked eyes with the fan. Is this happening? She thought to herself. Was it really him?
Standing before her was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yes, he said, I am that fan.
As Dr. King explained how Star Trek was the only show that he and his wife allowed their children to stay up late to watch, the gravity of her decision to leave the show pulled Nichelle back to reality. Thank you, Dr. King, she replied, but I plan to leave Star Trek. Dr. King was shocked. Don't you realize how important your character is? Nichelle's head swirled with all the reasons she had to quit the show, but she continued to listen to Dr. King. You have opened a door that must not be allowed to close, he said. Don't you see that you're not just a role model for Black children? You're important for people who don't look like us. For the first time, the world sees us as we should be seen, as equals, as intelligent people.
Nichelle thought about all the Black people enduring racism every day of their lives, just like she was. Her world tilted as she realized just how important she was to the show. Her presence on Star Trek was history in the making. Perhaps, Nichelle thought, Uhura is the symbol of hope, a role model. She knew what she needed to do. I'm just going to say this is my favorite spread. I love this spread.
When the Star Trek crew returned for the next season, Lieutenant Uhura reported to duty on the Starship Enterprise. And like the Civil Rights Movement, while some things slowly began to change, many things stayed the same. Her lines were still cut out. Uhura's character was never fully developed the way Nichelle had imagined she could be. She never forgot what her presence meant to the lives of the people who looked like her, and neither did they.
For over 50 years, millions of Nichelle's fans have watched Star Trek and continued to dream about the places and spaces they dare to envision themselves in, to boldly go, to make the future better for everyone. And so that's the end of the story. Thank you so much, Lauren. It's so gorgeous. But I also just wanted to show this spread too. This is at the back of the book that Lauren did. And, I'm not going to read it, but it just symbolizes, beyond Star Trek. When Star Trek was canceled, not a lot of people know this, but Nichelle Nichols was instrumental in diversifying NASA. At the time, in I think it was the late 60s, NASA was all white men, pilots. And they decided that they were going to make the space shuttle and that you didn't have to be a pilot in order to be on the space shuttle. You could be a doctor, you could be an educator. And so they wanted to diversify NASA and the astronaut program. However, because NASA had been white, most candidates who were women or minoritized people didn't trust the organization. And so they approached Nichelle and asked her if she would help them to find candidates who would want to become astronauts. And, she said, I'll help you, but if I do all this work and you still, just choose white men, I'm going to come after you. And she probably would have too. That was who she was. She would have come after NASA. And, but, they had her do it. And, she came back and, when NASA had gone out and done looked for candidates, I think they'd gotten something like 1,400 or something like that. It was a really low number. But in 6 to 8 months, Nichelle Nichols had come back with 8,000 because people trusted her. They trusted the work that she did. She went through all the training. She had her own flight suit that they made for her. So she really knew what she was talking about. So people trusted that she was the voice and of reason. She was the voice of change for NASA. And that's where we see like how we have all these new all these new different astronauts who are so diverse in how they look and in their gender, what they do. And so I just wanted to point that out because it's a really beautiful display of the impact that she realized that she was making on the world. So now Mr. LaMotta comes back.
Thank you. No, that was amazing. Thank you. And Angela, just touching on that, that's amazing that Nichelle Nichols was able to do that and like demand that things be done in the right way on her terms. And as I was reading that, I was just thought, I was like, many times at schools, I've seen, like you were saying, it's like I have picture books of Nichelle Nichols, and I've seen many of Mae Jameson, and I had no idea it was partly due to the work of Nichelle Nichols.
Absolutely. Dr. Mae Jameson, the Challenger, the Challenger, or the tragic flight of the Challenger.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was, Sally Ride, the first woman in astronaut, she was part of that recruitment campaign. So, Nichelle Nichols did so much for, again, they call her the grandmother of STEAM because she was very focused in science and technology and arts and math. And, she made that a priority for a large part of her career.
Yeah, and it seems too like, I mean, she did ballet, she did performances, things that were kind of there's definitely a demarcation there. If you were Black, if you did certain things, and to be in those fields, it seemed like she was breaking barriers everywhere she was going. I don't know, Lauren, how that was for you and how this impacted, how this book or creation of this book impacted you, and maybe thinking of your own history, what you've been able to do, and how maybe some of those doors may have opened up because of people like Nichelle Nichols.
Absolutely. Nichelle, I think, opened a lot of doors for any Black artist. I think I really identified with her as an artist, as somebody who, feels a need to express themselves. I mean, I danced as a child. I was never just like dancing like Nichelle per se, but I did ballet, and I know that what it's like to be that brown person in the room with all the non-brown people trying to do this, dancing. And I remember how that felt. And so, I could kind of bring some of those feelings, I think, to some of the illustrations in the book. But, I think she really did have an artistry to everything she did, beyond, her contributions on Star Trek. I think just as a Black artist, a Black female artist, she's very important. And I think more people will get to know who she is after reading this book, which is exciting.
Yeah, well, I'm getting to know more about Nichelle Nichols from reading this creation from you too. And also, I just wanted to mention too that it is interesting talking to you both and thinking of Nichelle Nichols and how I saw Star Trek back home in Zambia, was from a very different vantage point. Because for my people back home, the way we saw the world, yes, we knew there was racism, we knew there was, segregation, we knew there were all these evils that were happening, especially to people like us. But there was also this vision of America, and you got to see people like Eddie Murphy, you got to see, Sidney Poitier and all these others. And so it was so interesting for us seeing all these kind of like you were exposed to the people in the celebrities. And so it was a very different thing of looking at it and seeing somebody. And then when I look around me, my teachers, everybody was Black. They were like me. And so when I saw that on TV, it was just another person. It's like, oh, yeah, like this is how it should be. And so to think of that greater impact that it was having, to think of it having an impact on Dr. King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's just amazing. So wondering, too, like, I know that we've talked about Nichelle Nichols and a little bit, but why this story? If somebody was to say, why did you write this, or why did you create this? Why Nichelle Nichols?
For me, it was the message that came across for me was twofold. One, that she didn't realize the impact that she was making until Dr. King held up the mirror, and showed her, like, look at what you're doing. Look at how you're impacting people, how you're changing people's perception of our entire race. And so once she, saw that impact, she really didn't have any other choice but to take that responsibility and really move forward in being present. And I think for me, I wanted that story to resonate with kids, that just the simple act of just being present has impact. And I think that's really important, especially now. It feels, there's so much happening, and all of us are asking ourselves, like, what can I do? What can I do? And I think it's really important just to remember that just the sheer act of showing up can just have seismic impact that you might not even be aware of. And it's okay. You don't need to have that awareness, because look at these rings of impact that she had by going back to the show and having to endure a place where she knew she wasn't wanted, where she wasn't respected, but she did it anyway because she understood the impact that she was making for her people, for herself, for the country, for television history. She understood that, and she didn't walk away from it. And so I hope that kids will take away that, sometimes you might be in uncomfortable situations, but just stand your ground and know that you deserve to be in whatever space or place you want to be.
Lauren, how about you? Why Nichelle Nichols? Because you had the opportunity to turn down this manuscript.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was, first of all, I loved how it was written. I thought with the points that Angela are touching on about the impact really resonated with me, because I feel like sometimes we work on things and it wasn't, and we're trying to figure out how to, be ourselves and be our authentic selves in our work. And sometimes it doesn't always feel so easy. And I think this book really shows, the story really shows you how important your impact can actually be by just showing up and just trying to be yourself, even if it's not perfect. And that really resonated with me. But I think I love Nichelle because I think I really just, her as an artist was just really, I connected with it. I connected with the sort of struggle. I connected with her, searching, her need to want to have her own hand in it and creating her own story. I just really, I think it was just it's an important story for children's read, because it's, we don't always get the accolades right away. And it's not really about that, but it's about just showing up and doing the work, I guess.
Right. No, and
Yeah.
like, I think you mentioned, oh, sorry, I don't know if I cut you off.
No, not at all.
Yeah, but talking about that work, it's about showing up. You mentioned that, Angela, too. So I'll bring that question to you two. And how are you two? I mean, you're here. You're putting out books. Like, I look behind me, like it's a celebration in here of just beautiful works that you've put out, proudly Black. And so just wondering, too, like, how do you two show up in your communities?
Lauren, do you want to go first?
I think I try to, in my work, I always try to show what I see. And I really try to pay attention to showing diverse skin tones, showing diverse people, individuality. That was something that I always looked for in books as a child, and we didn't always necessarily grab. And in this book, especially, I wanted to show in this spread that, I'll just show it to you. The spread that actually Angela said she really liked.
It's my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
This one for me was really about showing, can you see it? I got it. All right, good. Yeah, this one was really about showing the diversity in our community, the diversity I saw growing up, and just showing us as individuals. And I think, I try to show up in that way in my art. I always try to be accountable in that way of making sure that everybody is an individual, because I think that's really important. And I'm trying to do more, I want to give out, I want to give more, I want to do more. I am writing, I'm starting to write, so I'm trying to write stories that, hopefully I'll be able to illustrate some stories soon that will also represent that, and just trying to create works that children can see themselves in, and grown-ups too. Families can see themselves in, everyone can, you know.
Yeah. No, and Angela, before you get to that question of to the same question of just thinking too with how you're showing up in your community, but just wondered too, because as you mentioned that Lauren, and how people how it matters. I think I know that in the book you mention in there too how our books are not, I think we had mentioned, Angela, too, it's not just mirrors, but it's also windows.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned how, not just the young people, how will they see themselves in these books, but how will others see us? And I think it mentions in there, we're seen as we should be, as intelligent, smart, and so just, I just wanted to just really highlight that as well, because in the book it says it so well, so eloquently, and as I was reading, it really resonated with me. But yes, Angela, how are you showing up in your community?
So thank you for really parsing that piece out, Peter, because that is really important. That it's not just, this book is not just for Black people, even though it's a celebration of Blackness, but it's for everybody to understand the history that was being made, the disadvantage that Black people were in during this time period, and also maybe even challenging. How do you, what is the lens when you see a person of color, Right. But for me, showing up in my community, it's one of the things that I love about writing books, because it puts people like Lauren and I in classrooms. And so I think it's really, again, impactful for kids to see someone who looks like them, not just in a book, but also writing the book, illustrating the book, coming together, working as a team to put this work out into the world. And so I hope that, by being present in schools or libraries or whatever the events are, that kids of color will look at Lauren or look at myself and realize, if they have a passion for writing, if they have a passion for art, they can do it. They can find a career doing that, and that they'll be inspired to share their stories and their talent.
Yeah, no, I and Angela, I know, and Lauren, if there's more too, but Angela, I know that you've also worked with, for example, Chapter 510 here in Oakland, and helping young authors, young kids, poets, and so on. And so I feel like that's such a great program too, paving the path for them, showing them, the ropes in this publisher life. But also, I remember when you came to my classroom, and after you left, I wanted you particularly to meet one student. Of all the students, there was one in particular that I wanted you to meet, because I thought, she needed to see that and needed to see somebody. And when you left, she was like, she authored this book? That Black girl? I was like, yes. But it was, that's moments like that where you sometimes take it for granted when things are happening, and then not that far reach, kind of like it was with Nichelle Nichols, not realizing you're reaching so many people so much, even when you're not thinking about it. And so just wanted to highlight that as well. And just for those joining us too, just a reminder that today we do have two amazing creators. We have Lauren Semmer and, of course, Angela Dalton joining us today in celebration of their new book, this new book that is out right now, and this one is To Boldly Go, how Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek helped advance civil rights. So please find it where you find books. Ask for it at your local library. Yes, you're looking for a gift? Here you go. But also, I wanted to, you mentioned it was TV night. Did you get TV night?
I did. Well, and I have to actually give a shout out to Tamar Mays, the editor, on this, because that's not how the original manuscript that I wrote started. That piece about me watching Star Trek on TV night with my parents was in my author's note. And she really wanted to pull it out. And so, which made me feel a little weird, because I'm like, I don't really want to put myself in the story, but I'm glad she did for two reasons. One, because, again, Lauren, I'm just going to gush about Lauren. Lauren did such a beautiful job of I see myself in this book, literally and figuratively. And, and to show to bookend that with a girl at the beginning, and then there's, you know, a illustration that Lauren did of girls at the end, you know, like there's a TV with Nichelle on the screen, but there's like a girl dancing, and there's a girl like, you know, in a space astronaut suit, or, you know, like they're just all doing things like that's being impacted by Nichelle. And I just love that bookend of the girls, because again, I think it even ties like people in closer, especially Black girls, to this book of like, this is how this is how this woman impact you for things that you can do, right? And so yeah, so I really was so excited about that. So I'm thankful to Tamara that she saw that and changed a little bit like the story, the accessibility of the story for kids by seeing other kids in the story. That was great. And I'm just going to admit, I don't remember what else I was supposed to say.
No, it was just TV night. Did you have TV night?
Oh, I did.
You answered it with some change. Thank you.
Oh, the only one to say is Kool-Aid. That was another thing I loved about writing, because it reminded me about being a kid and how much I loved Kool-Aid. And my parents were just like, no, you can have like one glass on Saturday night. And that's
that is amazing. How about you, Lauren? Did you have TV night too?
Okay, my mom's gonna be a little mad at me, but like basically our house, like every night was TV night. The TV was like always on. Like if you wanted to watch TV, go for it. Like so.
No, that was the way it was.
Working parents. It was just a lot of TV.
Oh no, that was for me too. It was TV in our household was open.
Yeah,
like, in time, but the only thing was my mom was always like, great.
Yeah.
If your grades are good, you're good. And then at that time,
I still like to work with the TV on sometimes. I don't know. There's something about it. I'll be like, I'll draw sometimes, I'll listen to the TV, or I don't know. I like the two things that I'm putting at once. It's probably from my childhood.
No, that's me too. Seriously, that's me too. I work with TV, radio. Angela, I've mentioned that I sleep with the radio on. For as long as there's nobody else with me, like if it's not disturbing anybody, I will. Yeah.
And like, where's all the noise? I can't sleep. Like I don't know. It's just
blame my mom.
I get it.
Oh yeah, and then too, like you know, we mentioned about we talked about you know, windows and mirrors, and somebody also, you know, like Nichelle Nichols needed somebody to just remind them, you know, because sometimes we all need that pat on the back. We all need that our handheld every now and then. So for you, who does that? Who is your pillar?
What great question, Lauren. First.
Okay, I'll go. I would say my husband Rob always reminds me. He never lets me forget what I'm supposed to be doing, and he holds me to a very high standard, which is annoying sometimes. And then, you know, I'll be like, I'm tired. He's like, get to work, you know, like he doesn't let me, you know, and he's never really that impressed, but it keeps me going, you know, like, and I think we do the same thing for each other. My mom's the same way. She's sort of the same, never, always a good reminder that, you know, you got this. You can do it. And also just never too impressed. Because when they get too impressed, you could try, you know, like, oh, back to the New York Times bestseller. When I told her, she was like, that's great, honey. Like, it just didn't even like really register. It's just like, good. So what else is new? And you're like, but Mom, look, I finally did this thing. And she just was like, good job, honey. Like, what else
telling you,
next? What's next?
You know? You need a certificate for that.
Yeah, so I think, you know, it's kind of, I have a lot of really great cheerleaders, I think, in my life. Family members, yeah.
Oh, that is awesome.
My agent, too. My agent's also a good cheerleader.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Angela?
Well, I'm really glad that Lauren, you know, mentioned like how family members are unimpressed because that's why I asked you to go first, because I'm like, I don't know. Because writing is a really solitary job, you know, like it's just you and a chair and a desk. But I would say my son is probably the one who challenges me and champions me. But it's also like, it's still that unimpressed of like, oh, I sold this book. And he's like, right on, Mom. Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
A year of my life on this, but that's cool. But he has told me in the past of how proud he is of me, so that always makes me feel good.
Aw, that is awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned that too. I mean, you mentioned writing is a solitary art, but also what's your process? How do you write? How do you, you mentioned, when do you show people, or do you, is there some work that just never sees the light of day?
There's a lot of bad stories that nobody will ever read. Nobody will ever read. You kind of, I think the most important advice that new writers, and I got as a new writer, was write what you love, because there's no guarantee that it's going to sell. So if you're writing something in hopes that it's going to sell, I mean, you're going to be very, very disappointed, because the industry is just, it's really, you just never know what people want to read, what becomes a trend. And so, I like with this story, people have asked me, oh, did you write this because of Nichelle Nichols, and like her health was failing, unfortunately, and then she passed away in July of last year. And it was like, no, I started writing the story in 2019, because that's how long it takes for a story, if it actually gets picked up by a publishing house. It's a couple of years. It's been about what, Lauren, like 2.5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And so it really is like, you just really have to write what you are interested in, what you're curious about. I think most writers are just curious by nature, and just, write for yourself too, like the things that you want to see, the way that you want to see the story told. And eventually somebody, will hopefully like it.
Yeah. No, and that's so important too. I think I'm glad that you get to share that. Like, just because that process is important, but also just as we're I say Lauren needs just get some water, but as Lauren is doing that, just also thinking too, how what do you do for self-care, and just because I feel like that's an important piece, and especially even when writing about topics like this, we're getting, I feel like, the tip of the iceberg. As much as there's so much information in here, there's so much more research and
there's so much
that you come across.
Oh, again, reading her autobiography was fascinating. And not just about these stories with like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or the the racism that she faced on the studio lot, or any of that. Like, it goes back through her whole life. And some things that I found fascinating about her was that her father was like a mayor, like first Black mayor of Robbins, Illinois. And
wow.
her mother ran off like Al Capone and his goon squad, whatever, because they were trying to like make her father do something that he didn't want to do. And, and her mother ran them off. So right there, like Nichelle Nichols was like a strong woman, because she came from a strong woman. Her autobiography also reminded me, because I think we usually think of racism in the South, right? Because it's like, that's where the things happen. But her autobiography was a reminder, an important reminder that no, racism was everywhere. She suffered through it in Utah, in like Salt Lake City, Utah, wherever she performed throughout the United States, she was facing, every Black person was facing with racism of some kind, whether it was overt, like in the South, or covert. And so, there's just things like that, of like just remembering the time periods from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that what she went through, that I just as a really interesting. I appreciated that lesson in her life.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And Lauren, welcome back to. I hope I hope you're okay.
Yeah,
but
a little something.
Yeah, no, totally understood. Also, we're just talking with Angela that like, what do we do? What do you do for self-care? Because we look at the research, I'm sure, that you had to do on, say, a topic like this one. It's a
heavy.
Big topic.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be kind of heavy too. I think you have to take it in pieces a little bit too sometimes, and just kind of take it in pieces. And also, I travel I try to travel. I try to like go to museums. I try to just get out a lot. I live in New York City. I walk a lot.
Yeah.
It's just simple things like that
Yeah.
can help a little bit. Taking breaks, also not taking in so much all at once. Just doing little bits. Because yeah, sometimes it's just like, it's just hard to read some things, you know, or to imagine some things, or to have to draw some things. Sometimes it's just like, oh, this is so sad. Like sometimes you read something, you're just like, oh, it's just so hard and heavy. And, but it's, you know, you need to bring it to the, you know, like they say, bring it to the game or whatever, you know, take it onto the court. It's like, take it, you know, you have to do that, but you do have to take care of yourself. And it's important. You have to get rest. You should get some sleep. Deadlines can be intense. I know you know that, Angela. And yeah, so that's kind of what you try to do.
Yeah. No, I just also you know, like, again, just a reminder before we close to everybody that is joining in today that we have Lauren Semmer, the illustrator of the lovely book that we're celebrating today, and of course Angela Dalton, the author, and this one is called To Boldly Go: How Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek Helped Advance Civil Rights. It is out. It is here. But also I wanted to say, one of the criticisms that I have for publishing houses is the material that is put out at times tends to be whitewashed. But in reading this book, I must give credit. I feel like it mentions so many important things vividly, boldly. How did this happen? How did we get to do this? I don't know if it's things you can share or if they're non-disclosures. Only what you can share, but just wondered.
I think it starts with having a great editor who wants to make change. And this is a hard one, but we're just gonna do it. because there's so many people that it takes to make this book come out, you know, like it's not just Lauren and I, you know, it's the editor, there's a creative team within the publishing house. There's so many people who put so much love, blood, sweat, and tears into making sure that this book came out, that it came out in a way that we all could be proud of. You know, there were some learning lessons of talking about like why certain things had to be presented in the way that it had to be. You know, I think that's also why it's really important that books about a BIPOC person are written by a BIPOC person, because there are nuances that can get lost if you don't identify with that community. And I feel fortunate that Tamar understood that and championed that. You know, I have to give a shout out though to HarperCollins Union. I think everybody, I don't know if anybody knows this right now, but you know, a lot of the people who helped bring this book into the world are striking right now because they're not being paid affordable, a livable wage in New York City. And New York City is really expensive to live in. You know, and it's not as diverse. The publishing industry is not diverse in terms of the people who are making the books. And so they're striking also to keep publishing diverse or increasing diversity in publishing. And so I want to give like a huge thank you and a huge shout out to HarperCollins Union and everyone who's striking. We are with you in solidarity, and we appreciate what you're doing. And again, this book would not have come out the way that it came out. And thank you for saying that, Peter, that it is, you know, as hopefully as a celebration of Blackness as it can be. And hopefully, you know, Brian Murray will do something, will acknowledge it and do the right thing and give them the contract that they deserve, you know, because
they deserve it.
Right.
So they deserve it.
So I think Nichelle too would have been very pro this. This is like what Nichelle was all about. So workers' rights. I mean, this is what she represented. So
Brian Murray better be glad Nichelle Nichols is not here.
Nichelle and not talk about it because it's they've been on strike for I think 47 days now.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember hearing about it, and then I remember too talking with you, Angela, it had come up, and that's been a while. And so just thinking about that, but for sure. And then please, if there are any ways that we know that we can, you know, support, whether it's donations and so on, please do share those. Feel free to share them here with us on Storytime, and we'll make sure that we amplify that as well.
Absolutely.
But thank you for being here, you two. Like, this has been such a wonderful. I mean, it's always lovely to have you here, Angela, and of course Lauren as well. Having you here today was just
Nice to be here. This is super fun.
Thank you so much for joining in.
So awesome.
Aww,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, no, really. Thank you. But here it is, to boldly go, how Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek helped advance civil rights. Please ask for it at your local library. Use your resources. They're there. Remember too that talk to your school librarians if they want to see this book in kids' hands. They also play a part. And then two, adults, parents out there, find this book where you find books. Support your local bookstores. And here in Oakland, if you're close to where I am, there's Marcus Bookstore. You can go there and find out. Lauren, do you want to tell us what bookstore is local to you?
One really close to me that I really love is called Books of Wonder. That's a great bookstore. There's also Cafe con Leche, which is in Brooklyn. There's Books Are Magic, which is in Brooklyn. We've got like a lot of really great bookstores.
Yeah, that's awesome. Angela, am I missing anything else in Oakland? Any other bookstores that you think?
I mean, East Bay Booksellers they've always been really supportive. Marcus Books.
Miss Dalloway's too,
Miss Dalloway's, yes. But Marcus Books, Miss Blanche, definitely support them.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad. Congratulations again, you two, on this wonderful book, for putting it out. And like you said, this book is not just for the Black kids. It's not just for Black people, but it's for all of us. It's for everybody, so we can learn. And those stories, we want stories told by the people that affected. And we'll only get the genuine stories if we allow people to share those wonderful stories that they have and support them in doing that. Thank you so much for being here today. I wish you great success with this. Who knows, maybe this one will come with the New York Times bestseller certificate, or maybe a ring. Who knows?
You jinxed us.
That wonderful conversation with Angela and of course Lauren Semmer, and I hope that you have a great weekend. Thank you for being here. This has been Storytime. Absolutely appreciate each and every one of you, and indeed I hope that this book invigorates you, reawakens that energy, and indeed as we go out into this world and continue to push for what's right, continue to put for just causes. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Thank you to Angela Dalton and of course Lauren Semmer. To Boldly Go, how Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek helped advance civil rights. Thank you so much for joining in. To everybody that stuck around for the whole hour, I appreciate you. And to everybody that joined us for whatever segment you were able to, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you have a lovely, lovely weekend, a wonderful Friday. And this has been Storytime. Thank you so much for celebrating with us. And we hope to see you again next week on Storytime. We do have a wonderful lineup coming up next week, already set. So please get ready for that one. Keep an eye out, keep an ear out over the weekend, as we'll be putting out the schedule for next week. So please, please, please do join us again. Thank you so much for joining in. And I must say too, a big shout out to you, Nikki and Graham out in Scotland. Thank you so much for joining in today. Welcome to the Storytime community, and we hope to see you at many, many more story times. Thank you so much for being here. Marietta, Apollonia, thank you so much for joining in. Congratulations on your upcoming book as well. And thank you. I hope you enjoy this wonderful book. The back matter is just amazing, and cannot wait to share with you after you've definitely read it at home as well. Thank you so much for joining in. I love it. Thank you, Amanda West, for joining in. Nathan and Sarah, thank you for joining us here on Storytime. Appreciate you. Owen and Miles out in Massachusetts, thank you so much for joining in today. And I hope that story was fantastic for you too. And thank you for joining in, Soraya. To everybody that joined in today, we thank you. We appreciate you. Tara McNamara and Erin, thank you for joining in. And of course, Clara, thank you for joining us on Storytime. I hope that you have a wonderful Friday. Yes, It's been over an hour of story time today, so we're going to let you go. Hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining in. This has been story time for today. This has been story time for this week. We're back again next week. But remember, you can find Storytime at storytimewithmrlimada.com. You can also find Storytime at Storytime with Mr. Limada on Facebook and YouTube, as well as Instagram. Go find us and keep up to date with everything Storytime. Thank you for being here, friends. I will see you again next week for more Storytime. Hugs from me. And thank you for joining in. And I hope you get to enjoy this lovely book, To Boldly Go. This one by Angela Dalton and Lauren Semmer, who we just saw. Thank you so much for being here. Please take care of yourselves. Remember to check in on somebody else. A little hello can go a long way. Thank you so much for joining in. Hugs from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.